think
degrading?
voyeurism, like being voyeuristic and watching, and is different than violence. Like I think when you're watching like a mainstream porn film, you're just watching two people having sex, positioning. She can be, you know, I don't think that's harmful to women, whether she's on the bottom and he's on top.
No.
But what if they bring props, you know, and they start using it on the woman? And what's the problem with having those types of fantasies enacted in the bedroom when the woman is a willing participant? I mean, it begs the question, do women have those types of fantasies as well as men? And probably they do. So where's the line between regulating fantasies because they could flow out into reality? Is that not a reality that women could want as well? I mean, there's a whole bunch of S&M, you know, element that women take part in. There are probably women out there that may enjoy violence or some level of aggression in the bedroom, because maybe that aggression is part of the whole fantasy or sex element.
But I think it's a male fantasy. I think that not necessarily that every woman would have those feelings because it was instilled through seeing male-produced images, because pornography is primarily made by men and it reflects their fantasies in general. But
and are you talking about the S&M role playing, and you may be talking about a different kind of violence?
Right. I'm talking
So
about like the choking or the cutting, or, you know.
In porn?
Yeah, I'm talking about violent pornography. Like,
so so there's some kind of violent harm happening to the female actress in pornography,
right?
And that's what you object to and believe has these consequences.
Right.
But you're saying that doesn't include beating or cutting?
No, it does.
It does include.
But you just said actress.
We can't really show animals being beat and cut. Like, no one, whose fantasy is that? Like, no one, I don't see that in films. I think a lot of groups would be really upset if animals were harmed. Yet there's pornography where women really are harmed and cut, and people get off on that.
Yeah.
You can make the argument that it's more powerful in terms of like mainstream, like movies and commercials, that women are seeing as, you know, submissive or princesses that need to be saved from, you know, the big, strong, strapping man who, you know, always comes to the rescue or always knows the right answer or is always at, you know, the expert in whatever dilemma it is that the woman can't get herself out of. I mean, I think that type of element that's found over and over again in all forms of media may be more harmful because it happens day to day than, you know, the very select violent porn, which obviously is not as mainstream as everything else out there.
Why are sexual images? It seems like you're trying to argue that they are particularly more impacting upon, like, people are more vulnerable to these sexual images than
when they're paired with violence.
Yes.
Right.
Why is that? You think that that is a specific male fantasy that?
no, I think it's the most negative. I think
all.
that objectification of women is obviously.
What about just like mass killing movies, like that have a body count of thousands and it's just a guy going on a killing spree? Isn't that worse? Almost, I don't know. In a porn movie where the woman doesn't die, but maybe she's being
quantified in that way.
I think the argument that he's trying to say is, like, it seems like you're telling us, well, you're arguing that you think that sex and violence towards women put together is the worst combination that, like, feeds to some deep male fantasy that's going to make it so that these guys might act on this. Why not the whole idea of going around on a killing spree? I'm sure that there's people that have had fantasies about just killing.
I think it's happened also.
So,
I think films.
But are you against those films too, then, for example?
I'm not for censoring them. I think I would be really careful to have my children watch them.
Okay.
Just like,
and so what? So for maybe I didn't for sex that involves violence like that. Are you okay with that being out there too?
I really, in terms of actual censorship, I don't know how I feel about it, but I would hope that it would be extremely inaccessible and that it would be really, you know, as it is, I suppose right now, very difficult to obtain in the minority of the depictions. But
I
it's
disagree
a
with that.
growing market.
Based on the internet, I disagree with that completely.
Oh, definitely.
We're speaking as if it's a foregone conclusion that all men like some sort of violence in their sex, and I personally prefer no violence in my sex in either direction. So I mean, we go back to this whole thing, and it's not just men, but a lot of times in this country we blame the media for things, assuming that people are that impressionable and can't make their own decisions, and I disagree with that argument. I think that you're talking about a small portion of the population, probably, hopefully, that enjoys some sort of violence in their sex. And they're the people that are going to, in my opinion, probably the people that seek out that kind of porn. But I could be wrong. But I mean, to speak in terms of condemning all men, it seems a little rough.
Definitely. I mean, men are able, it's not, I don't think at all that either of us are kind of insinuating that men can't make decisions, rational decisions, but I think that it's a small enough, it creates a climate for a certain number of people where it's a justification. It becomes a very tangible image, a very real kind of depiction that can be turned into something that's acted out.
Could the same argument be made for monogamy and adultery? Presume you're all married in monogamous relationships, and you see an X-rated movie or a general Hollywood movie that shows people having affairs and really enjoying them. Are such movies problematic because they plant the seed or they encourage you to be non-monogamous? And is that something that we want our culture not to endorse or provide?
But you could compare that to any other movie. If you watch some guy go out and kill someone, just the same argument. Does that mean that that person suddenly gets the instinct to go and kill another person? It's the same argument.
I kind of see it as every little film, every time you see something like this, every time you see a porno, which like there's a sex scene in which the woman's being like kind of thrown around or the guy's controlling her, or there's a lot of pornography in which it's kind of depicted as like the guy's just taking control of the woman and doing what he wants to, and it's not up to her. Like every time a guy sees somebody die in a movie or like some horrible scene, it seems like it's adding up in the back of your head and desensitizing you to that particular action, you know? And I can kind of see that in myself. Like, the more you see a certain something, the less it impacts you the next time you see it. And then maybe it'll reach the point someday where, like, if you see it in real life, it won't be as gruesome as it should have been, or it wouldn't have really affected you as much, you know? It depends, but that's why I see a problem with just pornography in general. Like, the idea that a lot of mainstream porn is actually pretty dangerous, I'd say, in a way, and thinking that it could put the idea into, let's say, men that don't have any girlfriends, men that have a hard time getting women and sit there and watch pornography all day long. Eventually, they're going to want to translate that into the real thing. Like, it's going to reach a point where, I guess, pornography and masturbation isn't going to cut it anymore for them. You know what I mean? And that's a danger that I see in just pornography in general.
I think the only way nonviolent pornography harms women is just the industry is, I think, harmful to women in that they're using their bodies and sexuality to get money. And there's so many other ways.
To use their body to get money? Yeah, there are. I mean...
Just no, but I'm just saying, like, for women who want... Like,
but it's a decision, and what you do is you limit their resources by taking away that option. I mean, I heard your point...
Who wants that option?
But I mean,
the women that are in the industry.
Do that.
I mean, I heard your point earlier about them being psychologically dysfunctional, or because they need money. But the fact is that most of the women tend to make a very good living making those videos. A lot more money than they make by dancing in a club where they take their clothes off, and they're still doing that volitionally. And maybe they need help psychologically. But I think it would be wrong to say that all of them are twisted or all of them are insane.
I don't think they're twisted. I think there's a level of desperation and maybe a level of like, I don't know. I can't think of a girl who comes from like a healthy background mentally who would want to take off her clothes.
That's a pretty good generalization. Yeah, I mean,
I know people that did that because they didn't want to work a full-time job or even a part-time job while paying for school.
And it's sad that society
but is
positions that
I work 2 jobs.
That's a reality.
But I don't think that you should take away their...
clothes.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a moral argument that you're making. And a lot of people don't view stripping or even prostitution as some kind of moral flaw in their makeup. I mean, it's no different for these people than deciding to be an accountant or working in an advertising firm, because that, they're using parts of their body to make money. They're doing that job to make money. To a lot of women out there, it's another job where they can make money. And then, they make good money.
Yeah, I still see it. I think it's sad. Like, I feel bad that they have to do that.
I agree that you feel. I don't agree that you. I understand that you feel bad, but I don't see from going from there to generalizing that all of these women are desperate. I mean,
for money, not for. I don't know. I don't know anyone where like they're looking for a job and they look through the paper and stripping's the first thing. Like, oh, that's for me.
Well,